Sit there. My mother's sharp voice cut through the wedding chatter, her manicured hand pointing at a tiny round table shoved against the wall, right next to the restroom doors. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us, where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Laughter rippled from the main hall where glittering chandeliers glowed over the grand reception. Crystal glasses clinked, music swelled, and my brother's new wife twirled in the center of the floor. But here I was, stuffed at a kid's table with paper straws and spilled apple juice. Seriously? I whispered, my voice trembling but steady enough to carry. You made me sit next to the restroom? My sister Rachel smirked, her sequined dress shimmering as she leaned closer. Well, Lily, what did you expect? Real seating is for family. Don't make a scene, okay? The word family sliced into me. Guests whispered, some pretending not to notice, others sneaking amused glances. My nephew giggled, flicking ice at me from his soda. My chair wobbled against the sticky floor. The smell of disinfectant wafted every time the restroom door swung open. I clenched my jaw. My hands trembled under the table, but my eyes stayed, fixed on Rachel. Family, I repeated almost to myself. Got it. They thought I would crumble. They thought I would beg for a seat at their table of chandeliers and champagne, but I didn't. Instead, I rose, slowly, deliberately, my chair scraping the floor in a sound that silenced nearby chatter. Every eye turned. My father frowned. Where do you think you're going? I met his gaze, my lips tightening into the faintest smile. Away from the trash can you call my seat. And I walked. Past the glittering tables, past the smirks, past my mother's hiss of, "Don't you dare embarrass us." My heels echoed against the marble floor as the doors slammed shut behind me. Outside, the night air bit cold against my skin, but it felt clean, cleaner than the suffocating banquet hall. My chest rose and fell, heavy, furious. 10 minutes. That's all I gave them. Because 10 minutes later, the sound of polished shoes clicking against the pavement made heads turn inside. The doors burst open. My husband, Mark, broad-shouldered, commanding in his tailored navy suit, stepped in with an expression that froze the room. Rachel's painted smile vanished. Her champagne flute nearly slipped from her hand. My mother stiffened. My father's jaw tightened, and as Mark's piercing gaze swept the room, it landed on me first, standing at the threshold, silent but unbroken. Where's my wife? His voice was calm, low, but it carried like thunder across the hall. Rachel's smirk collapsed into a trembling line. Her eyes welled, her shoulders stiff. She had mocked me only minutes ago. Now she was the one on the verge of tears. The air turned heavy. Guests whispered, shifting uncomfortably. And for the first time that night, my family looked unsettled. Because they finally realized what they had underestimated, and they weren't ready for what was about to follow. The hall had gone silent, as though someone had ripped the music cord from the speakers. All the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the endless bragging chatter, gone. The only sound was the click of Mark's shoes against the marble floor as he strode straight toward me. People whispered, heads craning. Who is that? That's her husband? He looks important. Mark didn't acknowledge a single one of them. His dark eyes were fixed on me, sharp and unwavering, and for the first time in the entire evening, I felt something no one in that room had offered me: protection. Lily, he said, his voice calm but firm. Come here. I walked to him, my steps steady despite the storm boiling in my chest. His hand brushed mine, warm, grounding, and then he turned, finally addressing the room full of gawking relatives. My mother rose quickly, plastering on a smile. Mark, dear, We didn't expect you tonight. We thought you were busy. Her tone dripped with false sweetness, as if 10 minutes ago she hadn't shoved me into the shadows. Mark's gaze didn't flicker. Busy? He repeated. Busy while my wife sits shoved by a restroom like she doesn't belong here. Gasps rippled across the tables. My father stiffened. Now wait a minute. No. Mark cut him off, his tone sharp as steel. Don't. You've all had your fun humiliating her, haven't you? Treating her like she's less than you, like she doesn't carry my name, like she doesn't deserve respect. I walked in here, and what do I see? My wife abandoned, seated like a child, at a table meant for leftovers. Tell me, is this how you celebrate family? The words dropped like stones. The guests shifted uncomfortably, some lowering their eyes, others watching with stunned fascination. Rachel's lip trembled. We didn't mean... Mark turned to her so suddenly she froze. His stare pinned her in place. Didn't mean? You laughed in her face, Rachel. You told her she didn't count as family. Rachel's painted confidence cracked. Tears welled, blurring the glitter in her eyeshadow. It was a joke. Then why aren't you laughing now? Mark asked coldly. The silence was deafening. Every table seemed to hold its breath. My father stepped forward, puffing his chest. That's enough. This is my son's wedding. Not your stage. Don't come in here trying to... Mark's voice cut through him like glass. Stage? You think I enjoy this? You think I wanted to walk in here tonight and see the woman I love treated worse than a stranger? You humiliated her in front of everyone. And for what? So you could feel superior? So you could remind her that she doesn't fit into your perfect little circle? My mother tried to interject, her hands shaking as she reached for Mark's arm. We just wanted things to go smoothly. Mark pulled away, his tone sharper. Smoothly? Nothing about this is smooth. You don't push someone into the shadows and call it love. You don't humiliate your daughter, your sister, your blood, and pretend it's normal. The weight of his words made the chandeliers above seem to rattle. And then, slowly, he turned back to me. His voice softened, though his eyes remained burning. Lily, you don't need to stand here another second. You don't need to beg for their respect. You've done enough. Come home with me. Something in me broke free. The tears that had been burning in my eyes finally spilled, not from weakness, but from release. For the first time, I wasn't standing alone. I nodded, whispering, Let's go. We turned to leave. Chairs scraped as guests shifted uncomfortably, whispers filling the hall. My father's face reddened, my mother trembling beside him, and Rachel, my perfect sister with her perfect life, was crying silently, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Wait! She called suddenly, her voice cracking. Lily, don't go! The desperation in her tone silenced the room again. My heels paused against the marble floor, but I didn't turn. Rachel's voice shook. I didn't mean it, okay? I shouldn't have said what I did. Please, don't leave like this. Not at my wedding. Mark's arm slipped protectively around my shoulders, and his next words cut with a finality no one could ignore. You should have thought of that before you put her by the restroom. And with that, we walked out. The doors swung shut behind us, leaving only stunned silence and Rachel's muffled sobs echoing through the grand hall. Outside, the air was cool and fresh. I exhaled, my body trembling as if it had been holding this in for years. Mark held my hand tighter. They'll regret this, he said softly. I looked at him, my voice steady now. They already do. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. The night had only just begun, and the tables had turned in ways my family never imagined. The moment we stepped outside, my phone buzzed nonstop in my clutch. First one call, then 5, then a flood of messages lighting up the screen. My mother, my father, even Rachel. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. Mark opened the car door. For me, his jaw tight, his silence louder than words. The ride home was filled with the glow of the city lights racing past the window, my pulse still hammering in my ears. "They'll spin this," Mark finally said, his voice low. "They'll try to paint you as dramatic, ungrateful." I let out a bitter laugh. That's their specialty. But my phone kept buzzing, desperate now. "Answer 1, Mark said quietly. "Let them speak. Sometimes silence hurts more than shouting." I hesitated, then swiped the screen. Rachel's name blinked at me. Against every instinct, I answered. Her voice came through broken, rushed. "Lily, please don't hang up. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean for it to go that far. I thought it was funny." "Funny?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "You thought humiliating me in front of your guests was funny?" Her breath hitched. "I was wrong. Please, just come back. Mom is panicking, Dad's furious, and people are asking questions. You're making us all look bad." Mark glanced at me from the driver's seat, his eyebrow arching. I pressed the phone harder to my ear, my tone icy. "Rachel, you made me sit by the restroom. You laughed while people stared. And now you want me to save your reputation?" Her silence was telling. Then a sniffle. I can't fix this without you. Please, Lily." I didn't answer. I hung up. The buzzing started again instantly, but this time I powered the phone off. Mark's hand reached over, resting on mine. "You don't owe them your peace," he said softly. For once, I believed him. By morning, the fallout was everywhere. A cousin had recorded part of Mark's speech on their phone. It spread through the family group chat like wildfire. My father's face red with anger, Rachel trembling, my mother's desperate excuses. It was all there, caught in shaky but undeniable footage. The video leaked beyond family too. Friends of friends shared it. Soon neighbors and coworkers had seen it. The comments? Brutal. "Who makes their own daughter sit by a restroom? That husband deserves a medal." Rachel crying at her own wedding? Poetic justice. By breakfast, I had 50 unread messages from relatives trying to justify themselves. My mother's voice rang through the first voicemail. "Lily, darling, you know how stressful weddings are. We didn't mean it like that. Please call back." The second was sharper. My father. "You embarrassed us, Lily. Do you realize what you've done? You've turned family against family. Fix this." Mark, reading one of the texts over my shoulder, scoffed. "Fix this? They should be begging to fix themselves." I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. Why do they only care when people are watching? He leaned closer, his voice steady. "Because for once their image isn't untouchable." "And you didn't break it, Lily, they did." By noon, there was pounding on our front door, loud, desperate. Mark opened it, his expression unreadable. On the porch stood Rachel, her mascara smeared, her perfect curls flattened from the night before. Behind her, my mother clutched her shawl, my father stiff and scowling. Rachel's voice cracked the moment her eyes landed on me. "Lily, please. I need you to come back to the reception. People are still asking why you left. They're saying things, ugly things." Mark's voice sliced before I could speak. "And whose fault is that?" My father's tone hardened. "We are still family. Whatever happened, it should stay between us, not out there for everyone to gossip about." My anger rose, hot and steady. "You didn't think about family when you shoved me into the shadows. You didn't think about family when you laughed at me in front of strangers. You only think about family when it makes you look bad." My mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "We made a mistake, Lily. Please, just help us fix it." Rachel nodded furiously. "Yes, just come back, sit with us, show everyone we're fine. That's all I'm asking." I held their eyes, one by one. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the weaker one. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel forgotten. Mark slipped his hand into mine, His words were low but lethal. "You don't owe them a rescue, not this time." And I realized he was right. The three of them stood there, waiting for me to bend, to rush in and patch the cracks in the perfect image they'd built. But I didn't. I stayed silent, strong, letting the weight of their own actions hang in the air. Finally, Rachel's shoulders crumpled. She covered her face and sobbed on the porch. And for the first time in my life, it wasn't me crying in front of them. It was them, and they knew this wasn't something they could control anymore. Rachel's sobs echoed against the quiet street. My mother's trembling hands twisted the edge of her shawl. My father's scowl deepened, but even he couldn't hide the flicker of unease in his eyes. For years, I had been the one begging to be seen, to be respected, to be included. But now, they were the ones on my porch, desperate, unraveling. "Lily," Rachel choked, her voice hoarse. "You don't understand. Everyone's talking. They're saying I treated you like trash. They're calling me cruel, heartless. Please, if you just come back, sit with me, show everyone we're fine. It'll—" "Stop!" Mark's arms slipped protectively around me. His voice was low, sharp. "So now it's about your reputation, not her dignity." Rachel shook her head quickly, panic in her eyes. "No, I really am sorry, Lily. I swear I'll make it right. Just don't leave me like this. Not today." My father finally stepped forward, his tone stern but edged with something I'd rarely heard from him: uncertainty. "Lily, you've made your point. Enough is enough. Family fights, then family forgives. Don't drag this out." I met his gaze, my voice steady. "Forgiveness isn't yours to demand." The words hung in the air like a blade. My mother flinched, tears spilling. "Please, Lily, we should be celebrating together, not tearing each other apart." I looked at her, really looked. At the mother who had pushed me aside at every milestone, who had smiled only when I stayed silent, who had watched as others mocked me without stepping in. "Celebrating?" I said softly. "You celebrated without me the moment you put me at that table by the restroom. You celebrated while I sat in humiliation. You only came running when people noticed." The truth silenced them all. Mark squeezed my hand, his voice calm but final. "Lily doesn't need to go back. She doesn't need to cover for your cruelty. She doesn't need to save the image you destroyed." Rachel's sobs grew louder. "Please," she whispered. I drew a breath, my chest rising and falling with the weight of years. "You made your choices. Now you live with them." I stepped back into the doorway, Mark steady at my side. "And this time, I'm not going to be the one fixing your mess." The slam of the door behind us shook the house. On the porch, the sound of muffled cries and my father's low curses faded. Inside, silence wrapped around me. But it wasn't the silence of loneliness. It was the silence of freedom. The days that followed were a storm. The video spread further than any of us imagined. Neighbors, co-workers, even strangers had seen it. Rachel's perfect wedding became a spectacle of whispers. People replayed the moment her face crumpled, the moment Mark's words cut the hall to shreds. And suddenly, my phone wasn't just filled with apologies from family. It was filled with messages of support. "You don't know me, but I saw that." "Clip, you were so strong." "My sister treated me the same way. Watching you walk out gave me courage." "Your husband? Incredible. You're lucky. But so is he." For once, the world wasn't laughing at me. They were standing with me. A week later, Rachel showed up again. No makeup, no glitter, no cameras, just swollen eyes and a box of untouched wedding favors clutched in her arms. "I can't escape it," she whispered, standing on my porch again. "Everywhere I go, people look at me like I'm a monster. They call me the sister who humiliated you." Mark folded his arms, his expression unreadable. I looked at her, torn between the old me, who would have bent, who would have soothed, and the new me who finally knew her worth. You humiliated yourself, Rachel, I said quietly. I just stopped covering for you. Her lip trembled. So, what now? Are we just nothing? The question lingered. I could have said yes. I could have shut the door forever. But deep inside, I realized my revenge was never about destroying her. It was about reclaiming me. I don't know what we are, I admitted. But I know what I am now. I'm done being your shadow. Her tears spilled again, but this time she nodded, understanding what words couldn't fix. That night, I sat with Mark on the couch, the glow of the city spilling through the windows. You were incredible, I whispered. He smiled faintly. You've always been incredible. I just made sure they finally saw it. I leaned against him, my chest finally light. The pain hadn't vanished. The scars of years of being dismissed, humiliated, overlooked, they would never vanish completely. But they no longer defined me. Because the girl who sat by the restroom? She was gone. The woman who walked out in silence, who refused to return, who faced her family and didn't break. That was me now. And for the first time in my life, it felt enough.